What is going on, Wolfpack Nation? Welcome to another episode of Tuffy Talk. We are so excited today to finally start talking some NC State wrestling, baby. Finally, all these times. I know that we've had a lot of NC State Tuffy Talk supporters that have reached out being like, hey, when are y'all going to start talking wrestling? Well, here we go, finally. To be honest, I'll be honest and say I wanted to see one match first just to kind of get a better idea of, what the starting lineup is going to be like, see, what some of these new guys are going to look like. And now we got that taste, and now you got basically a 2-month break, before your next home match. You got some tournament stuff, which we'll get into. But we got a little bit of time now to kind of, break it down before we get into the ACCs. We're joined today here by Robbie Wendell with Intermat Wrestling to help us break it down here. Robbie, thank you so much for joining us today, my friend.
Absolutely. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. So, with that being said, again, obviously NC State wrestling has absolutely been a team that not only I feel like has gotten better and better, every single year, but also it's been getting more and more fan support every single year. And I don't know, Robbie, if you were, I'm sure you were. I mean, if you cover Intermat Wrestling, I'm sure that they would not have thought about sending you anywhere else, especially since you're located in Virginia, than the NC State Virginia Tech duel in Reynolds Coliseum last year. And I'm assuming by your head nod that you were there. And the one thing which I do gotta say is that I'm sure you've covered a lot of teams. I'm sure you've covered a lot of matches. But to me, specifically when Hayden beat Mackay, but just that whole match in general, I've never been in an environment as intense, as electric, as crazy as that match was. But specifically after Hayden beat Mackay, that was just unforgettable. I'll honestly never forget the moment, watching Hayden, look at the crowd and do, the slow raise the roof to the crowd, and just the fans were going just absolutely bonkers, and rightfully so. I mean, give us your thoughts. I mean, would you agree with my comment in terms of, that environment is right up there with any environment in not only just wrestling, but college sports in general? It was insane.
Yeah, it's a great dual environment in Reynolds. That was the first duel I'd been at. Went to ACCs there when I was in there in like 2010. We were talking about earlier, and it's a wholly different place than it was, 10 years ago.
Yeah,
the team is a wholly different program than it was 10 years ago too. Yes. So the whole environment, that was a great duel from start to finish. It was tight. It was back and forth. You had a lot of top 10 guys matching up. The de facto dual title was on the line, even though it wasn't technically. And placements, for the ACC tournament the week after that were on the line too. So there was a lot that went into it. Hayden's match was huge. The little Latona scuffle on the edge with Camacho was big. But it was fun. I was Matt's side for it. It was a great place to watch.
Well, the one thing which I will say is, you and I both know that yes, technically we already won the ACC championship, but Coach Hall and Coach Pop, when I asked them about it, they both said if they lost that match, they basically wouldn't have done any kind of ceremony, nothing. They would have just taken the trophy, just hid it away, and just left it be, because every single Virginia Tech would be like, oh, you technically won it, but we beat you guys. And so, as much as I'd like to say, yes, we won it by then, no, it was still on the line. 1,000%. It was still on the line. No doubt about it. But
and you bring up a good point, though, because they didn't bring the trophy out until after the match was done.
No.
Right. They kept it hidden, and then it just made a miraculous appearance.
Exactly. So, heck no.
Yeah.
So the one thing which I do want to ask you, Robbie, for sure, obviously talking a little bit about Hayden there, one of the big pieces of news that, happened out of nowhere that I think pretty much all in-state wrestling fans were actually pretty shocked by. Nobody knew about it. Was the news of Hayden Hidley announcing after his last match in NCAA is that he was hanging up his wrestling shoes, period, in terms of being, competing and moving into coaching. How shocked were you by that news?
Not super shocked. He wasn't, I don't think, super focused on the freestyle circuit. It wasn't his best fit. And if you don't have that desire to really go full bore at that level, it's not worth the investment. And he, is in a good place here in Raleigh and with the program and the role that he's taking on now is a great fit for him, both personally and professionally. I think it fits his personality really well. He's clearly an example of the culture that Pat's built there, and he's going to do nothing but help them continue to get the recruits that they're getting. So he's in a good spot. I think he made a good choice. And
did you by chance catch him on the call on Friday night on against App State?
He did great. Yeah. He did an excellent job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I loved his energy. I was sitting
Ryan
right. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I was just saying I sat right behind him as he was doing the call, so I could just see his motions and his animations, and he was really into it. And I really, I came back home and watched it after the fact, and it was like I was talking on our podcast last night. Is hearing the audio after the visuals, it was kind of like, okay, now I could just visualize what he was doing at that moment at the thing, and he was very animated and very articulate with what he was describing. And I can consider myself a very novice fan. He broke it down really well for the casual person like myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I agree. From his first, his debut of doing play-by-play at the event him and Trent put together back home, it was definitely better than the first attempt. But a little behind the scenes, I was telling Leighton early, my kids were sick this weekend, so I was rocking with my daughter, and I didn't get to watch the whole duel as it first went. So I listened to the play-by-play for a few matches while I couldn't watch it. And Hayden was fantastic on the call. Very descriptive. It was not overwhelming. Did a good job explaining what was going on without jumping in and telling what was going to happen next, because that's a really hard thing to do when you are broadcasting. Is we can kind of see where things are going and what's likely going to happen, but a good broadcaster is not going to go right and say this is what's going to happen next, and this it kind of lets it happen and organically and goes with it.
I don't know. I'd have to argue you though on that statement, because Tony Romo all the time says what's going to happen on football plays before they even happen. So I mean, but yeah, no, I hear you though. Wrestling's different for sure, but just that was the first thing I thought of in my head, was like, I don't know, Tony Romo's making millions right now by basically saying what play is going to happen before it actually happens.
Well, I think you nailed it right there. He's making millions to make those decisions and calls, so a little bit different.
Absolutely. Well, and again, I mean, obviously, hats off to Hayden too for really kind of stepping out. I think honestly, probably out of his comfort zone for sure, because I think myself, I've talked to Hayden a couple of times. He's not the most outgoing personality, for sure, which, obviously with broadcasting, it's just you and one other person, and you basically have to paint this picture for all of those, watching back home. Just like you said, you really have to, help the fans walk through it. And so for him to do that and do that successfully, hats off to him for sure. So one thing which, do got to talk about obviously is, obviously the loss of, a couple of, big time guys that we were, really looking forward to. Obviously losing Hayden, but obviously losing Tariq Wilson as well. I kind of want to talk about this because we really didn't get a chance to kind of really wrap things up from last season. But I'll be honest that I still have a little bit of saltiness in my mouth by the way that Tariq went out. Just so unlike him, I mean, I can't remember who he went against. All I remember simply is just watching the match, and he had one near fall that, I mean, I swore that somehow I don't know how he didn't get pinned, and then he escaped. And so it's like, okay, well, Tariq's going to fight back from this. And then literally a minute later, he gets near fall and then pinned. And it's like, whoa, Tariq, what the heck, man? You literally have made a career of getting out of bad situations and turning them into good. And it just seemed like he was off the whole weekend. I mean, he was the number one seed. I mean, he was favored, in a lot of eyes to win the national championship. So, I mean, what were your kind of thoughts on that? I mean, was there anything news wise that maybe that we don't know in terms of maybe he was dealing with the sickness as well? Like, I don't know.
Not specifically that's been made known or anything, but the NCAA tournament is just kind of a different beast. It's a 3-day tournament. It's right. It's a grind, and it can really wear on you. And if you're not 100% going in, or most people aren't, But even if you're not 90% going in, it's going to be tough to really make it through that unscathed and be able to give full effort in all your matches. So it's, those last two rounds really say a lot about, where you can kind of end up and what you can fight through to get there.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. And I guess too, the reason why, I didn't really kind of bring that necessarily up is because of the fact that Tariq Wilson's not a freshman. He's not a sophomore. He's a 5th or 6th year senior, at the time. So, but at the end of the day, that guy is going to go down as one of the best NC State wrestlers of all time. Simple as that. That guy was unbelievable. So, his legacy is still established, even though he didn't, do as well as he did that last year. So I definitely want to make that perfectly clear. Not bashing on whatsoever. Just, a disappointment for sure. Because, especially that first day at the NCAAs, things are going great. Everybody was moving on to day 2. And then just day 2, just pow, 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 pow. And everybody just knocked out one by one. So, but hey, new season. Here we are. Again, obviously beating App State was huge, to start off the season, with a bang, 26-12. So I obviously many different places to fill. The first thing which I do want to kind of talk about, the first weight, with the 125. Obviously, Jacob Camacho right now dealing with some injuries, but I fully expect that whenever he is healthy, he'll take his rightful place, as the 125 wrestler, especially since Trombley hasn't gotten off to the best start so far. Obviously losing. Go ahead.
He's out for the year.
Oh, he's out for the year?
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. Okay. I thought he was dealing with injuries to come back. Okay. Dang.
Yeah, so he had knee surgery this summer. They are trying. There's a possibility.
Yeah, slim, but
okay.
His rehab's going really well.
Okay. Dang.
So
okay.
There's potential for him to come back the second half of the season.
Man. Before we continue, I want to take a quick second to tell you about our sponsor, Flatlands Jessup Insurance Group, that has your whole world covered, with agents in 5 offices throughout eastern North Carolina to help you decide how much coverage you need. Offering policies for home and auto, recreational vehicles, commercial, crop, health, life, and employee benefits. They are able to combine options to find a comprehensive solution that works for you. Flatlands Jessup protects the things you love so you can spend less time worrying and more time enjoying them. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Flatlands Jessup. You can also visit their webpage at www.flatlandsjessup.com. So please make sure to go and check them out.
I just heard the rumor that they were just going to give him his red shirt and let him come back strong for next year. But, who knows, obviously, how things play out. Because I know they probably won't, 1, rush him back, and 2, they would make sure if he comes back that he probably gets enough matches in to qualify, right? I wouldn't imagine they would just bring him back just to bring him back if he can't compete.
No, I think the thinking would be second half of the season if he's able to go for ACC season, then send him to a few opens.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of variables in that.
Sure.
He's got to be 100% for it to be worthwhile for him. But then is it going to be worthwhile for the team? Is it going to be, a big upgrade over what Trombley's able to do? Is it going to matter in terms of winning the ACC or placing in NCAAs? And those are the things that Pat and Adam are really kind of considering when they're talking about whether they're going to bring it back or not.
That makes sense. Well, hey, learn something new. Thank you all for bringing that to my attention, for sure. That's some inside stuff right there. Well, I'll tell you this right now. Probably the one person that's probably the most disappointed about that news is not even somebody that's wearing red and white. It's somebody named Sam Latona.
Yeah, maybe someone from Blacksburg.
Yeah, I think he's probably the most disappointed. To not get that revenge. Hey, Camacho's got him last.
Well, look, Latona's up at 133 this year.
Oh,
so he bumped up. Tech's got a battle going on right now. Eddie Ventresca's got the spot right now, and then Cooper Flynn's kind of going back and forth.
Okay.
Ventresca's beat him 4 in a row. So, but they're all 1-point matches. So they've got a good option there.
Yeah.
Latona's up at 33.
Dang.
So.
See, that's another reason why it's tough to cover wrestling, because there's always movement. It's not like you ever see a defensive tackle move to linebacker. It's like they're always generally going to be in the same spot. But wrestling, it's always moving, and you got to keep up with it for sure. So yeah, okay. So then, Jake, so Trombley. So let's talk about him then. Obviously, disappointing loss, losing to Caleb Smith at App State 3-2. I know I wasn't there actually at the match. I know Greg was. I knew my parents were, and they were filling me in afterwards saying that they saw Popolizio giving Trombley some words, obviously after the match, and rightfully so. I mean, again, Jared Trombley is a guy that is experienced. Obviously, he's most well known 2 or 3 years ago of getting the pin against Virginia Tech to put the dual championship in good hands, and hasn't really done much since. Obviously, competed last year with Kai Arini, but then lost his spot to Kai. And so it's just like, I think everybody, obviously even Popolizio as well, has expected more of him. Do you see this more as kind of a writing on the wall, or do you see this as kind of a, first match of the year, like, don't really read too much into this?
I'm not thinking too much about it. It's his first time ever being down at 25. He's wrestled at 33 his whole career. He's a 2-time NCAA qualifier there. He made the round of 16. I mean, he's a good wrestler. Him and Kai were back and forth last year, and Kai won the spot. But he dropped to 25 for the team because that's what they needed. And this was kind of the case with a lot of people this weekend that kind of came out slow. It's the first weekend is a really tough weekend if you're cutting a lot of weight. That first weight cut is really hard because you're not used to it yet. You've done practice matches, practice cuts, but it's a whole different animal when you're actually doing that live cut and then going full bore against somebody who wants to beat you.
Right.
And Smith is no slouch. I mean, he's an NCAA qualifier. He's scrappy. He's really quick. It was a good match. I think Trombley could have attacked more, and I think kind of looking at all of the matches that NC State lost was similar to really that. Close, if they would have attacked more, been more offensive, I think they would have been in a better spot. Same thing with Kai. Mm-hmm. Same thing with Donald. I mean, that's kind of where they were. The matches they lost were tight, with the exception of Milner and Arrington, but that's an All-American versus a true freshman.
True.
So,
yeah. Which I didn't think he did bad, considering he didn't get majored. So I thought that was a win. And I know there's no such thing as a moral victory, but for a true freshman, he looked every bit at the part, like he was ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for your debut match to be against a 2-time All-American, it's kind of tough, but he wrestled him well. He got into some good positions. He founded off a lot of attacks, and Milner's tough, especially on the edge. And Jackson did a really good job defending a few of those shots that he probably would have finished on a lot of other people.
Yeah. Right. Well, and to talk about too the depth, one thing which I loved was the fact that even during intros, I think they, and Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, but they pretty much announced a 2 wrestlers at every single weight class's potential to wrestle the night, which again, just shows, obviously Pat's not just going to put anybody as this or that unless he truly does believe that, he could pick either one of them to go out there and wrestle at that weight. And especially with these opens and tournaments that we have coming up here in the next month or two, it'll be interesting to see. I know that Ryan Jack, last year, I think it was last year when they wrestled against Iowa, and he should have got the reverse pin. Which so Robbie, I got to bring that up. Do you think that he got that reverse pin?
I said it when it happened. I said it a lot of times after it happened. It was should have been called, but that's a tough one that's not going to get called very often, especially not going to get called against
not against Iowa.
3-time All-American
in Iowa.
Yeah, not against Iowa.
It was in Florida.
Oh, that's right. That was. But
it was against Iowa.
It was against Iowa. Yeah,
right.
It was an open.
Yeah. So no. And the funniest part was when we put out the video and the picture of the Iowa wrestlers shoulder blades on the mat, and the Iowa wrestler himself was basically saying you can't call a pin based off picture. I'm like, well, I posted the video and the picture. What else do you want? Like both of them, and should have been a reverse pin. But anyway, so basically, point being is that with these opens, and with these tournaments, you might see some guys that kind of be like, oh, okay, whoa, like check out that guy, so maybe you see some more of that here.
There's the rule change this year as well. For true freshmen, allows them to wrestle in 5 matches attached. So they can wrestle in a duel and not lose their red shirt. They can wrestle 5 matches attached and not lose their red shirt. So it gives a lot more flexibility to see, if those true freshmen or those red shirts are ready to go against, high level competition without, burning that red shirt for one match. Mm-hmm. So makes opens a little bit more complicated in the first half of the season because true freshmen can't compete unattached at opens, but they can use one of their 5 dates at opens. So it's just one of those management things that coaches are going to have to take into account. But
yeah,
for the non-technical wrestling fans, can you talk about attached and not attached? I understand what it means, but for anyone out there that doesn't,
yeah.
So attached means you're competing and scoring points for the team. Unattached means you're going on your own, not competing for the team, but you're competing against other college athletes generally.
Yeah.
Opens can be anybody, but generally speaking, it's college athletes. So they're not scoring team points. They're not official competitions for the team, so they can use their red shirt and still get competition. But it just means they can't travel with the team. Team can't cover the costs. There's a lot of weird liability things that go into it, which is part
really
of the reason
weird. Wrestling is a weird sport. The way they operate, because I learned a lot of this last year when we went to a NC State fundraiser, and they have the RTC there that kind of helps do that stuff unofficially, officially, and it's very convoluted. And for your, like I said, for your average casual fan, it can be very complex to try to figure that out. So I've been learning a lot of that on the fly, but definitely thank you for explaining that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So kind of what I was getting at with Ryan Jack is obviously there's 2 main sophomores that we'll be talking about that have absolutely blasted off nationally, and Ryan Jack is definitely one of them. And I think one of the most impressive wins of last season, besides the one that should have been against Iowa, was also one that at the time we didn't know how big it was, but when he beat the UNC wrestler in the ACC semis, and then that UNC wrestler went on to making it to the national championship match, and also too, I mean, the fact of how he won it. Ryan Jack got the takedown right with 3 seconds left on the clock to win it, and of course the UNC coach goes off like he always does because that dude whines every single chance he can get. But what are your thoughts of Ryan Jack so far and what you've seen from him so far?
He's developed a lot. He's gotten a lot better. He's a lot more confident. I think that's the biggest part of it. The skill's always been there, but it's hard as a younger wrestler to be confident when you're going against All-Americans and upperclassmen all the time.
Right.
His top game's gotten better, which is where Kevin scored a lot of his points. So I think maybe rubbing off a little bit on him. He's always been great from neutral. Can always attack really well. He's kind of deceptive, but he's definitely showed last week, and from what I'm hearing in the room, he's getting a lot better on top, and I think that's going to be a difference maker for him.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, and again, I mean, the one thing I do actually love is that every single time that Ryan competes, it's almost like Adam Hall or Pop or whoever basically will sit down and let Kevin basically get up and go be, one of the main coaches, calling out signals to him. And I love that, because I mean, it just goes to show, first of all, the culture that has been built, the fact that, I mean, it's not, it's a brotherhood, like, Machiavello, Gwiz, Tommy Gantz, all the way, Hayden Hidley, all the way through the guys that are currently here. It's a brotherhood thing. Like, it's not, it's nothing more than that. We just all want NC State wrestlers to be successful, to win national championships, ACC championships, period. And even if it's your own brother, like, simple as that. Kevin Jack is a multi-time All-American, and good for Ryan Jack for taking that in, even though it is his brother, and obviously everybody looks at, Ryan Jack and comparing him to Kevin Jack, and you're never going to avoid that. But at the end of the day, I mean, watch out for Ryan Jack. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I see potential there to get even more accolades than even, his brother did, which I mean is going to be tough, but he definitely could do it. Winning at ACC his freshman year, that's got to say something.
He's going to have a tough route this year. I mean, I got Cole Matthews is number 1 in the country right now, sitting up in Pittsburgh. So if he can win an ACC title, that's going to be, it's going to take him a long way to success at the NCAAs as well.
Well, and to kind of, one last question to kind of wrap up part 1 here. And again, we'll talk about the other, wrestlers here in part 2. But the one thing which I do love, honestly, is that the ACC, obviously, again, I mean, your Penn States, your Iowas, your Michigans, that big Big 12, right? I always, Big 10. I always get those two mixed up. I'm sorry. The Big 10. Yeah. the Big 10. The Big 10 is the predominant, wrestling conference period. It's not even, I mean, that's pretty much who you have to go through in order if you want to win any kind of national championship. But then the ACC from top to bottom has gotten so competitive and so, I mean, nationally recognized. I mean, even the fact that our lowest team in Duke still will each year have usually a wrestler or two that's competing for an All-American, status, if not competing, at least for an ACC championship. So, even though they may never really compete from a team perspective, they still are competitive individually, in some assets. But I mean, just like you said, Pitt has really gotten up there. Virginia's gotten a lot better. UNC's, unfortunately, bringing their guys up. But, talk a little bit about, the development you've seen in the ACC and, the competitiveness. And I mean, also too, do you, what are your thoughts on the ACC not really expanding? Like, in my opinion, there should be more than 6 teams that have wrestling programs, in my opinion.
Well, that's 2 big questions.
Right. Yeah.
So let's address the expansion first.
Yeah.
I have no idea. It's nationwide why we're not adding more.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we are adding programs here and there, which is, a reversal from what it's been for the last 20 years with us hemorrhaging programs after Title IX came into play. And that was the reaction from a lot of administrations and their way of equaling things out.
It was an easy program. It's an easy program to cut.
Yeah. Gets you a lot of numbers out without really impacting your bottom line because it's not an expensive sport. So, so I don't know. There's not a really good answer as to why they don't. A lot of the programs have success in the past. Clemson's had national champions. Syracuse has had national champions.
That's the one for me that surprises me. Like when I started following wrestling, I was like, wait, Syracuse doesn't have, like, New York is known for their wrestling. Like that's a great wrestling state. Anyway, that one shocked me. I didn't get that one.
And if we could expand a program down into Florida, I mean, that's untapped. I mean, there's so many good wrestlers coming from Georgia and Florida right now, and there's no programs down there, no Division I programs. Let me say that. There are D2, D3, and NAIA schools, but if we could get a D1 program down there, and we have options in the ACC down that way, why can't we add and expand down there? It would make my travel a lot harder if we added Syracuse and Florida State, but I'm not going to turn down going to Florida in January either. So
it's not a bad place.
Not a bad place to go.
No, I mean, I take it, but that's the short answer. I don't know why. There's not a really good reason. Administrators don't want to pay money for sports that aren't football and baseball or basketball generally. So
yeah, they're not money makers. So there's more red than black for those schools. So and like I think to your point too, like you just mentioned, if you do expand to Florida and New York, your travel budgets are going to go out through, as well. So those schools know that they don't have any programs near them to kind of latch onto to help defer some of those costs.
That's true.
Well, that's good though with the ACC. You're not, right now you're looking at 5 weeks of competition. So even if you add a couple more teams, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to hit all of them.
Right.
You're already going to have to travel down to North Carolina at least once. There's 3 teams down here, right? So no matter what your rotation is with that, like Pittsburgh's rotation, they traveled down back-to-back weekends to North Carolina last year. They only have to go down once this year. And that's the longest trip they're going to make. But there's no reason that a schedule couldn't be made to, balance that out. And there's enough teams up in New York and Pennsylvania and New England that, the whole EIWA is up there. So why not? There's options outside of the conference for competition, and the majority of your competition is not in conference in wrestling. So
sure. And that's a weird one too for me. Like you minimal ACC wrestler, conference wrestling. I don't know. It just doesn't. I'm so used to the other sports, and so just trying to figure make heads or tails of it. It's just an interesting dynamic how they govern their sport.
Yeah, absolutely. And
a lot fewer dates.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that being said, again, so we're going to take a pause in part 1 right there. If you want to see part 2, as much as we love to release it publicly, we're going to actually limit it to our members only. If you are not already a Tuffy Talk channel member, all you have to do is, again, sign up for only $1.99 a month to get access to exclusive Tuffy Talk content, including part 2, but including our interviews with Jarkel Joyner, our part 2 of our interview with Lacey Steele, our class 2023 women's basketball top top 60 player commit. So if you want to see all of that, as well as get access to our weekly newsletter, get access to our private Discord, again, it's only $1.99 a month, and all you have to do is click that join button, sign up today, and you'll get access. But before we sign off, want to obviously give a shout out and plug for Robbie. So Robbie, where can in-state wrestling fans check out all of your stuff?
Intermat.com on our Rockfin page. Everything is published there. You find me on Twitter at Coach _Wendell. Haven't changed that from not coaching anymore, but I guess it stays.
Yeah.
Follow Intermat as well. We got a lot of good content coming out, so
absolutely,
come check it out.
Absolutely. So with that being said, and then obviously for Tuffy Talk Wise, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you're notified on all of your devices whenever we release any new NC State content, whenever we do any of our Tuffy Talk live shows, any of our watch parties, whatever it may be. And we'll definitely, I know we did one last year for wrestling, and we're definitely going to make plans to do another one again this year, at least, if not more. Especially probably for that Virginia Tech match. We're probably definitely got to do a watch party for that. And obviously too, if you haven't already, hit that like button, as it really helps support us. And also too, it just really helps, grow the channel. And also to give us a follow, Tuffy Talk Now on Twitter and Instagram. But with that being said, we'll see y'all for part 2. As always, go Pack, y'all.